About 50% there. Yep. All right, young man, you're ready to go.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Call the Franklin Township Planning Commission meeting of November 7th. Call it to order at 7:06. Stacy, can you get all the attendance?
Got him.
Um, I guess the first order of business is public comment. There being no public. Jim, did you have anything at this time?
No,
Okay.
I don't. Thank you.
I think the next order is approval of previous minutes. I'm not sure which month and dates without.
June
It goes
6th,
back to June, I think, isn't it?
Okay,
June 6th, 2024, sir.
Right.
all right. I went through them. I just couldn't remember the date and month. So any comments or additions, deletions?
Well, Stacy put them together. I went through them and then we sent them out for review and I might have gotten a comment or two back. I don't remember. And we incorporated that and then sent it back out. So there really shouldn't be anything in there that, unless somebody has something today. But it's been through the PC who attended the meeting.
Can you see the minutes on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I can't read them without my reading glasses, but I see them. Mark or John, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Great. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
So 3-0. And then next order of business, Jeff, right, is our solar ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully, we've all had a chance to remind ourselves of what this ordinance was. How long ago, Jim and Jeff, was it that we walked that Longwood when we started this whole process?
Almost seems like 2 years ago.
Right.
It's been a long time.
Wasn't it last summer? Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yes.
So I thought we'd use the county's letter to kind of go through it, unless anybody had a better thought. Having revisited this from last week and then today, looking to get ready for the meeting, I thought by the time we get through the county letter, it pretty much takes us through the ordinance versus going through it item by item. The comments that I got back from Chuck were that we've gone over this several times, and he thought for the most part, and I do agree, that we have incorporated much of what the county is suggesting or recommending. I think there are a few points that I'd like to kind of review when we get to them. But the first being, if we just use in the description number 1, we have those definitions. Did anybody have any thoughts that we needed to amend the definitions or address them in more detail?
I didn't have any real issues with that. I didn't really have any issues at all with the ordinance and with this. We can talk about any issue anybody has, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
I guess this might be a good spot. They later on in their letter, they referenced that we have applicant defined here in this ordinance, and then applicant we use, I guess, in our general definitions. And Jeff, who would we have to clear that up? Is that the engineer or the solicitor to make sure that applicant doesn't have 2 definitions?
We can start with the zoning officer and then go from there. I think the quickest response would probably be from Guy, but we can work on that, sir.
Okay. And then, so moving forward then, under landscapes, I really feel that's just a comment that they make in every letter that they sent us, and I didn't have anything to go over as far as item number 2. The first that I get to discuss is item number 3,
Mhm.
which is looking at the ordinance, section 2B1, which would be the principal use.
Their comment was they don't want it necessarily on prime agricultural soil.
Right, they were concerned that we were gonna use up prime ag soil. And I didn't know if this was a spot where we wanted to make it condition. I'm not saying I'm in favor of this, but I think it should be discussed that they were looking at ag voltaic uses. And whether if somebody was going to use a primary use in AR, whether somehow we would make it a conditional use or require them to make it agrivoltaic. The drawback is I think, what do you call the ag part of it? I mean, it's nice to think that we would think they'd have sheep underneath there or blueberries. I don't think grapes would work, just to answer that question. And or just in general, do we think we should limit it to commercial, light industrial, and specific? I guess special use would be the other zone.
If we limit it to those 3 zones, we'll have none. I'm not saying we want it on prime ag soils, but we all know that there's very limited special use ag and commercial in this township. And to say that you can't do any, we'll call it a solar farm for lack of a better word, means that essentially it's not going to happen here.
I agree. I don't think we should restrict it. You can't tell what is in the mind of the owner, what that land's going to be used for, if it's going to go fallow. I don't think we should step into this. I mean, that's nice in an ideal world, but we're not in an ideal world. I think we should leave it as it is.
I'm fine with it. I think we have enough requirements that you're just not going to have anybody coming in and taking advantage of. I think, as taking advantage of us. You still have to keep the contours the same and meet financial requirements. The argument is too, I don't know, I'm not saying this is necessarily my argument, but the argument is you are farming, you're capturing the solar power the same as a plant. I thought that was a little stretch myself, but so
Yeah.
we're good with number 3.
I am.
I mean, as far as what they were addressing, we're going to keep our ordinance the same.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Jim, do you have any comments on that?
No, my only comment was if I don't, it doesn't matter to me either way. I think if somebody owns a property, even though it's ag, they should be able to do what they want with it as long as it falls in the in whatever other restrictions that we have here in the ordinance, right? I think if we start seeing that all of our farmland, prime farmland gets taken up by solar fields, then we have to change our ordinance or do something different, right? But I don't see that happening.
Neither do I.
So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
4 really addresses the same issue.
Mhm.
And I appreciate the comments in 5. It made me go look at the blueberry farm in Maine.
Yeah, I was just up in Bar Harbor, Maine, and as we flew in, there are a number of fields that were no longer green, but solar panels.
Hmm.
I couldn't believe the number of areas that were, spaces where probably at one time there was something being grown and they were just covered with solar panels. It was interesting.
I mean, I really like the agri-solar or agrivoltaic. I just don't know how you codify that.
If I kind of summarize that from what we're all saying, we hope that the landowner considers that as an option when they're putting a solar field in.
Hmm.
So then moving on to 6, and I remember us having a discussion about this, as far as whether we can make an exception by the board only, because this is a zoning ordinance, correct? Yes.
I think the logic we had at the time is that this solar is developing in so many directions. When we were reviewing the solar panels at the time, we saw things such as the solar trees, where it was a tall post and it had a number of solar panels up high, in not the normal way that you would think 2 or 3 years ago. And as the technology changed, our ordinance may not accommodate those changes. And so what we discussed was, how are we going to accommodate a fast-moving technology without being an impediment to the technology? And I think in our discussion, we said that the zoning hearing board is a way of doing it, but it's a costly way for the homeowner.
Correct.
What we thought was that if we ran this through the supervisors have the option of approving it or dropping it back to the PC or maybe recommending it to the zoning hearing board. But we were looking for a way of accommodating it and accommodating new technology without putting the impediment of installing new technology because we didn't have it in our ordinance. And that was kind of the logic, I think, that we put together
Yep.
for that lot for our wording. Is that right?
I concur. That's my memory as well. The issue is whether we can, I guess, legally do it. Jeff, did we ever go further than saying we didn't want to force the homeowner to go, or the property owner to go to a zoning hearing to see if Guy?
I can revisit number 6 again with Guy, but my memory is in lockstep with John Gontar's um, with his take on why we did what we did.
And I think we did check it, but I don't remember who we checked it with to see if this was something we could do. But I don't remember who we did it with. It may
I-
have been one of the engineers. I just don't know.
But with Guy, we can get I think a no nonsense answer, in a reasonable amount of time. So I'll ask him if the planning commission wishes.
And then Jim, for you, the question is, Dave was on the committee at the time,
Right.
and he was in favor of this approach. And the question now is that we probably have some different supervisors, and you're here. Are
Yeah.
you comfortable with this approach?
So just so I'm clear, the approach that we have in our ordinance is that a permit or someone seeking permit can seek an exception from the Board of Supervisors, but the Pennsylvania Municipality Planning Code allows exceptions from the zoning hearing board, not the board of supervisors. Board of supervisors can only grant or deny conditional uses, right?
Under zoning ordinances, correct? Yeah. So, but our intention was, you know, with the changing in technology, but also the fact that somebody might want to make their solar panel as decorative as possible. And it
Right.
may actually complement their property, but that it doesn't meet our requirements. Should they pay the extra to go to the zoning hearing? Or then that's what we're trying to avoid.
You know, for example, in my property, my house is to the back of the property and it actually faces the back. So my backyard is actually the front yard.
Right.
But I've got so much frontage that I could put it there and nobody would see it because of the situation. And then there are some articles about having solar fences where you could put up a fence, you know, and then that would generate electricity. Now that if that comes true, then that really that that doesn't quite fit our ordinance. You
Right.
follow me? So
Yeah.
there's all these new technologies, and we just didn't want to be inhibiting people. But again, if the supervisors are uncomfortable with it, they can always drive it back to the PC.
Right.
And,
No, I'm fine with this. I understand it. Perfectly fine. This is, yeah, we should all be looking at things like this instead of some of the things that we've been dealing with lately.
Suggest that if we can get Guy to give us a no nonsense approach, how we can do that.
Can
Keep it
do,
out, keeping it out of zoning hearing.
can do.
And 7 is in reference to our stormwater management, and whether our requirements that it's considered impervious meets our stormwater ordinance. I remember having a discussion, I don't know. Do we feel it meets our stormwater ordinance?
I think we felt we did. Um,
These arrays are not like, are they similar? Like we're thinking about arrays that are similar to the one we looked at Longwood, right? There's strips with a break between.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and that's the normal way of doing it.
Right.
When, as I said, I was flying over to Bangor, Maine, I must have seen 4 or 5 or 6 solar farms, and they're all of that style where they have, you know, panels with breaks so that
Right.
they do drop on. It doesn't make a lot of sense to just have a sheet that's 20 feet long and then have all that sheeting going into the ground as a, you know, because of the flow of water. So I think from a practical point of view, people aren't going to do that. Plus, from a structural point of view, having a 20-foot piece that you're trying to support versus a 6-foot piece or an 8-foot piece makes a lot more sense, you know?
Right.
So I don't see that that's an issue, but I think we
I agree.
discussed.
I don't see it being a problem, but I haven't seen anything that big anyway, anywhere. It's not like you're building a house with a roof that there's no break, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But sections 2A, 3F. I thought we were saying they were impervious. And the county wants us to consider that they're pervious.
Just don't understand how it would be considered pervious.
Yeah, Jeff, can you scroll down to 2A, 3F? It's just down below. Keep
Where,
going,
oops,
yeah, keep going a little bit more. There we go. Let's see it. A little bit more. Getting there. There's 2A.
Just one more click.
Right, to get 3F, yeah. So 2A looks like it's just on a rooftop, right?
Right.
Shouldn't
Yeah.
extend beyond the eave. So anything anything that a regular stormwater management would cover would be covered by 2A.
I agree.
3F,
And then B4 is under principal use. Or
Which one are we on now, Dave?
number 4 in the middle of the screen then.
B4, under principal use solar, page 3. We require that the submission, review, and approval of stormwater management ordinance.
That's fine, right?
Yep.
Okay. So moving on to number 8 in their letter.
Yeah, scroll back up, Jeff, please.
I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on my screen.
But you're on our ordinance, I think, right?
We want to
You
go
gotta go-
back to the county letter,
Oh, sorry.
page 3 of their letter.
Number 8.
There you go. So I thought we addressed that in B7 under principal use solar energy system. B7 shall not entail timber harvesting without equal replacement of trees on the subject property. That's what we have in our ordinance that I think addresses their number 8.
It's almost the exact wording. In the middle of that paragraph, it says any trees that are removed should be replaced according to township regulation.
Yeah,
So
but
they
let's
have
face it,
3G.
any solar array anybody's gonna put in, they're not gonna take down trees for that. They're gonna put it in fields where there's, where you're not gonna get shading from the trees. So I don't think it's very likely that that's gonna be a situation.
And if it is, we address it.
Exactly. Because I know in my case, I'm in trees, I'm not gonna put up solar panels because they don't see the sun. You know,
Okay.
So I
So,
think either way, the ordinance covers it.
right,
And they list 2A, 3G, which says vegetative cover shall be, in our ordinance, it says vegetative cover shall be provided and maintained under the panel array area. So I think, Dave, you're right. The section that you were quoting is more covers this than that one.
So-
I mean, if somebody wanted to rip out a hedgerow because their solar, field was going through a hedgerow, they would have to replace any trees somewhere else, I guess. Just making up an example.
right.
And then the one that they quoted, the 2A, 3G, is saying that we have to maintain vegetative cover underneath the panels. which is fine too. Like I said, either way, I think we're good.
Yeah, normally that's gonna be grass or something like a grass.
Hmm.
I mean, that leads us right into 9,
Yeah, exactly. I see that.
which if you want to promote agrivoltaic or whatever, that's not necessarily going to be native ground cover.
Right. And it might not support pollinate, or maybe it will. I don't know if all ag supports pollinators. I guess it does. Unless it's just,
Yeah, I don't think we need to change anything based on their comment 9.
right.
Um, it seems reasonable under permitting that the utility should be involved.
Great.
Looking at 10 and 11, and then I kind of looked at them together. But if you look at 2A4, that's under the accessory use on page 2 of the ordinance, down towards the bottom, prior to construction. Might be worth going down to that page 2 of the ordinance, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, you could scroll down. Page 2.
Right
Yeah, right.
there. Would it be reasonable for us to state, in addition to all those we required reviews and approval, that there's would it be a approval of the utility company? Or acknowledgement by the utility company?
Um,
I
is it,
can't
what would the utility do? Would they give you like almost like a acknowledgement letter that,
Wouldn't, sorry.
Go
is
ahead,
it,
Jeff.
is it like mark out, tag out? Is that what they're saying in there's number 10? So that we don't rip apart some utility, underground utility under the ground?
I understood it to be that most of these are going to be tied into the utility to our, so let's say Pico, that if even under a accessory use, there may be periods of time where there's excess energy or excess electricity produced and it goes back into the grid,
Right.
and then vice versa. And so I could understand why it would be.
Yeah, it does say, approve the interconnection if the project will be connected back to the grid. Right.
But it doesn't 5 somewhat cover that, or am I missing it?
That's what I think. You know,
Do those requirements require you to coordinate with the local utility that you're gonna, I don't know if they do without reading or understanding EEE and the ANSI.
well, we talked about these systems tying into the grid. And that the people who run the grid, Pico, had to know about this.
Where's Where's that? Like we gotta, let's see if we can find that.
If it is under those ordinances, I'm not sure where it is, but I'm sure it has to be there because Pico has to be involved with the interconnect. I just don't know, maybe Chuck would know that better if he was here. Can ask Chuck about that, if that fits, and if number 5 fits that requirement.
Is it wrong to state it in 4, even if 5 meets it?
Well, you can state it.
I mean, could we ask, would it be Mark Gordon to put wording in there that Pico or the local utility acknowledges and approves?
Sure.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I don't see why that would put any harm into number 5. I mean, number 4. Or 5. I don't know which one to add it under, but 4 or 5.
I don't think there's any harm putting it in there. I don't know if in Pennsylvania, some states, the utility is mandated to take power back from a homeowner. I don't know if Pennsylvania is one of those or not.
I don't think it is.
It isn't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I've got a note to check that one.
And the other thing is some states are actually putting moratoriums on solar farms connecting into the grid for various reasons, and I'm not sure why. I read that somewhere.
So John, I think part of the reason is that when you're a demand person, like you're pulling energy off the grid, they charge you the commodity price, transmission and distribution price.
Right.
Three items. When you send it back or you give yourself a credit, they're giving you the full credit for all 3 of those things. Where the utilities only someday they only want to give you the credit for the commodity going back. They're not going to charge you, or they're not going to pay you for sending. It's almost like you own the transmission distribution if you're getting the full price when you send it back. Again, we're going down a rabbit hole here, but I don't think any utility has the ability to only give you one. When you send it back, they only give you one portion of the bill, and that's the commodity that you're sending back to them, because you're using their transmission distribution lines to do it. So, I mean, again, that's a little bit off base of this one thing, but I think it's easily adding that language to either number 4 or number 5 doesn't do any harm to our ordinance.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So if we make a note, Jeff,
Yep.
have our consultant do that. So then the wording of decommissioning.
We discussed that, and I think I was the one who raised the issue that after the system ceases operating instead of using, if somebody wanted to, let's say this is 25 years into the life of the thing, and it really is not producing and generating enough money to pay for the maintenance of it, you'd want to have it then decommissioned. And what one could do if we have the other wording, the useful life, it comes down to what the useful life is. Suppose you put a 100-watt bulb on there and say, we're getting the use of this 100-watt bulb lighting up this area. Well, for megawatt unit, that's not saying a lot. It's just a way of dragging out doing the decommissioning. So that's where that wording came from. I don't care if we reword it. It's just that we want to make sure that after the facility is not generating enough money to maintain itself, we really want it decommissioned rather than sitting there and falling apart. And so I think our wording was trying to capture that. I don't know if it does.
We just say useful life, right?
yeah,
Right now, we're saying useful life.
Right.
And I don't want to play an attorney, but I consider useful life of the system to just be fodder for attorneys to go back and forth to argue about what the useful life is versus stating that the system ceases operating.
see, that's the
Um,
problem is, if you're running a 100-watt bulb, is that ceasing to operate?
What if we use some language that says, I'm just making this up off the cuff, but if it's a 1 megawatt, if it's a 1 megawatt, or if it's a 500 kilowatt rated system, if it drops below a certain percentage of its,
That would be fine. It's just that we did not come up with that wording when we went through this.
yeah,
So I don't think any of us have a problem with changing that to make it more definitive. If we can get a more definitive phrase for that, I don't think anybody's gonna have a problem with that.
the idea is to not let, if it's on someone's roof, to not let it rot up there on someone's roof without being useful whatsoever.
That or a
Right,
How do
solar
we
farm.
how does it monitor? Like, how would we possibly ever monitor that?
Well, this was, I think, I don't know.
that's where I find issue with useful life because we can come up with 6 definitions.
I know. That's what we came up
Um,
with, though. So if you have better wording, if we can get better wording for that, that's fine.
Wouldn't the manufacturer state in their regulations what the useful life should be?
I
I
don't
think,
think that. I think they stay away from that.
yeah,
Okay.
So in the audit world, I think when I'm building controls at work, I say, like something like reasonable, I use the words like reasonable discretion, things like, just like useful life, it's the same thing. Because I'm on the other side, I don't want the auditor to force me into a box. I want to be
Right.
able, I want reasonableness to be at my discretion,
exactly.
but that's not what we want here.
No,
We
we
want
want to get it before it becomes a problem.
Right.
Um,
I think the burden was to put it on the person running the farm and not necessarily the property owner.
Yeah, I think we should make it a percentage of the original rating of the of whatever project they put in.
I think that's a good approach. What should that percentage be?
That's what I don't know.
That's what I don't know.
I'll tell you what, though, I could probably find some manufacturers and talk to them and see what they think. When their units start to fail or not be as productive, at what point do they say it should be replaced? We can try to come up with something from that. I can take that homework if you want.
That would be great.
Is there somebody we can dip into that's where this is their job instead of having Jim have to dig into this? I just don't know if anybody, or do our engineers have that knowledge, you think?
I have no idea.
I can talk to our engineers first, and then
right.
if they don't have an answer, my company invests in these things, so I don't do it. The traders do it, but I can
Okay.
actually get in touch with somebody. I can try to get in touch with somebody.
Yeah, because in my case, when I was running a plant, we had the benefit of the plant versus the cost of maintaining the plant. And there's a crossover point where you say, the plant's just not worth it anymore, and you either decommission it or whatever. Um,
Or refurbish it or something, right?
right.
So we'll put a pin in this one.
Yeah, we talked about this for a bit because we didn't have a great solution.
But if you can find more information between our consultant and you, Jim, we'll give it one more shot in December.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll call you tomorrow and get, see who I can talk, unless you want to tell me tonight who to talk to in our engineering group. You tell me.
Uh, we can talk tomorrow. My initial thought would be Nate Klein from Panoni.
All right,
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could use a hard number, or a hardish number.
right. Okay,
Okay. Number 12 is how high we should allow the primary use to be. I just, from we looked at disturbing woodlots from a practical sense, saying it's not going to happen. I don't know where somebody's going to make, there again, with current technology, make it 30 feet high, these arrays. But maybe with technology going forward, that would be possible, in which case would we want it that high? But um, but I also heard them arguing from both sides in that, well, most ordinances say this high, which then precludes the agrivoltaic approach for at least some aspects of agriculture.
Do you remember those solar trees that, I think just as we were going through this, I don't remember exactly where, but there was an article, I don't remember who brought it in either, but there was a solar tree, which is basically, it was a pole like a utility electric line or something like that. And it was steel, and coming off of it were solar arrays. Um, and it was kind of graduated to look like a tree. Do you remember that? And those were running up around 20 feet, I think. Well, I can do a quick search.
I'm looking at a number of them right now, John. I just Googled solar tree picture.
Okay.
And there's like 10 of them on there. Jeff, if you're sharing, if you have Google, just
Yes,
put
sir.
solar tree picture into Google and you can flash it on the screen. There's quite a few different ones. Some of them are crazy looking.
Yeah,
Some of them
I mean,
go over like car parking. Some of them go over like
right.
a little
Yeah,
park.
they were just evolving. There were some, I think a lot of them were sourced out of Europe, is my recollection at the time.
Can everyone see my screen?
No.
Still
No.
see no, we still see the original.
So I just understand their comment to be for principal use, not for accessory use. So whether these solar trees would actually be used as a principal use.
They
I mean,
could be.
those pictures obviously say they would be.
Really?
I mean, there's a lot more of them now than there were 2 years ago in design, but some of them actually look pretty nice.
Some of them look, that one, scroll down a little, or scroll up a little bit. See that one on the left, the second one in on the bottom right now?
Yeah, yeah.
That, go down a little bit, one more down. That one's, yeah, that one right there.
That's wild.
That's ugly. We will,
Yeah,
I will,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, I wouldn't want that, but oh well.
crazy looking.
Yeah. And then my question is, if any of these are on the panhandle through Florida, are they still upright and standing? But
That's always an issue.
Yeah.
So how do we want to address the concern of the height? Are we good just letting to see how it goes?
I think we should just see how it goes.
I agree.
Yeah.
No one's gonna spend extra money to put a solar
That's kind
panel
of
in
how I feel.
extra tall.
I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you guys.
And then 13 is we made a note up in definitions about having maybe two definitions for applicant
Right.
and having the consultant look at that.
Yes.
Then the inspection requirements, if you can go down to that section, I think it's actually section B12B, not B12A, but that the inspection requirement was annual inspections is B.
What page are you on, Dave?
You got it right there.
Oh, sorry.
So their comment is the inspections requirements in section B 12.A, I think it's 12.B, may be excessive. Instead of annual inspections, an inspection frequency of every 3 to 5 years is more appropriate. I would just ask, I made a note to myself, if we could ask our consultants what they know to be elsewhere in use and if 3 and 5 is more reasonable or not in other, where other townships or actually have solar fields.
I guess in my case, what my thought would be is that if there's a solar array, let's say it's a solar farm, and we have cracked panels, which are allowing water to go into them, and the water is going to leach out the minerals that are in them into the ground. That isn't what we want in our area because a lot of our owners are using well water. So for me, I would prefer to look at them on an annual basis, just in case we have a solar farm where they're running thin and they don't fix things up as fast as they should. And that's the only reason I would pick every year instead of every 3 to 5 years. It gives us the ability to go by there, look at it, and if we don't see anything really obvious, if you have a cracked panel, typically it gets fogged up pretty quickly because the water gets in there and starts leaching out. That
John,
was the thinking.
it's definitely similar to our septic requirements. I know we have to have inspections regularly on a commercial septic, and it's not 3 to 5 years. And you're stating very similar concerns. I didn't think about that till now, but other requirements within our township are similar to an annual, not every 3 to 5 years.
That was a discussion point we had for a bit, and we came into one for that kind of thinking. I'm not sure where they come from 3 to 5, where they get that from. Our rooftop solar, yeah, you're not going to go up there and look at it every year, but this is more, well,
it's a pretty small system if it's rooftop for the most
right.
part.
Right. You can look at it through a pair of binoculars if you had to.
Drones. Use drones. They
Jim, what do you
drones.
think? Do you think that supervisors would want to keep it annually?
So my first thought on this is like how much would it cost for an independent professional licensed engineer in the Commonwealth to do this. And if it's $100 or $200, that's fine. If it's $2,000 for a rooftop or something, large, it's probably too much. Again, this is conditional use, but is this just for rooftops? I'm sorry. Let me get that straight first. Or is it for a farm or both?
This is for primary, so farm.
Okay, so it's not for rooftops.
This is under the primary use.
Okay. So then I think, yeah, large things like that. Yeah, I think that would be okay. I think everybody would be okay with a year. I'll make sure that I can make sure I can run it by them too. I think at 1 year is probably reasonable.
Another option is to make it part of the conditional use. Make it but do we want all these coming before the board? Probably not. Or is primary use a conditional use anyways? Isn't it? Don't all primary uses come before the board?
I don't know.
That's my remembrance date.
Yeah, so number one, B1, principal use solar energy system. Number one, permitted in all zoning districts only by conditional use. So if we wanted to, if we're somewhere between 1 and 5 years, we could leave it such that it's a conditional use that the supervisors come up with at the time.
At the time of approval.
Right.
That's fine. I don't think the solar farms are piling up on our desk right now, so I don't think we mind.
I mean, I guess that would put the onus on the applicant to state why they would go 5 years or 1 year. We'd give some discussion, and I think if it was a conditional use, you'd find out how much it's actually going to cost. Because they'd say,
Yeah.
wait a minute, you're causing me $2,000 a year, $5,000 a year, whatever it is.
Jeff, when you
They can
went to,
provide, maybe if we put it on them, they can provide some reasoning behind why it's only 3 years or every 5 years. If that's
Yeah.
the industry standard or something like that. I just don't
Yeah.
know what it is.
Jeff, when you went to Longwood and looked at that facility, is there a contact you could call there and ask them how frequently that array is inspected?
I can. Hopefully she still works there. That was just about 2.5, 3 years ago, believe it or not. I was looking through my old emails.
Because
I can ask that. That's a good question.
Yeah, she would definitely know. She was very in tune to what was going on.
yeah, I
No.
would think that Longwood would want to know that, and that's probably built into their agreement because I think the utility owns that and it's on Longwood property, so I'm sure Longwood has some agreements relative to that.
Yeah, I can check.
It's an easy way of checking if she's available.
Yep, I found her email address.
So that's good. I don't think we're leaving too much till next month, but
So that, Jeff, that's number 14 on the county letter.
Yes, sir.
And remember, it's B12B that it refers to in our ordinance, not B12A.
that's all I have under their letter. Number 15, I went to those web page and most of them I got a 404 error sign that the pages were not available. Any other discussion as far as the solar ordinance and the county letter referencing it?
No, not for me.
Not for me.
No. Hey, Jeff,
So
on
I-
number 16 on the letter, there's, what's her name?
Rachel Griffith?
Yeah, Rachel Griffith. We can call her and ask her about the 3 to 5 year too, see what she has to say.
Yeah, if you
Sure.
don't mind emailing her, Jeff, that would be great.
No, that's fine. Happy to do it.
So I do think we're on course to move this to the supervisors in December.
Sounds good. Yeah. Just get a couple of these things answered and we'll be in good shape.
Yeah,
We're working getting those answered. I'm happy to work with Jim and, someone else, and I really think we can get this done.
Yeah, I think what we have, the questions we have could be answered pretty quickly if we hit the right person, yeah.
If when we're done talking about this subject, Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing I'd like to bring up. Different subject, but will fall into the planning commission's lap when you're ready.
I think we're ready, Jeff.
All right, I don't know if you remember the email that I sent you, but the developer from many years ago for Woods Edge has resurfaced. So I would think in the next couple of months, he is probably going to have a plan to submit. If you remember, that was up on Blair Road, bordering New London and London Grove Townships. So I put a little packet together for the planning commission. If you don't have it anymore, I can send it. But what he is trying to do is wanting to submit a plan from 15, 18 years ago and have the planning commission tell him what has changed. So after the zoning officer and I sat down with him, we gave him a better understanding that it doesn't work that way. So he needs to submit a new set of plans based on his engineering judgment, and then we look at it and determine if they're right or wrong based on our ordinances. So he's going back again to do some thinking.
Okay. I'm sorry if you sent that packet recently. I don't remember. I mean,
Okay. It's easy to do again. I started doing research on it because I figured you gentlemen would want it, for when it comes up again. But I'll make a note to look for that again and then resend it in a couple days.
why did it not go through the first time?
As I remember, he did not come up with the financial security. So much time had gone by, a rejection letter was sent out. He kept getting extension after extension. So a rejection letter was sent out, but I've got that in the packet. And again, a couple days, I'll resend that out, or,
All right. Well, good meeting. I think, any public comment?
no, just nice to see everybody. Thank you.
Great. We'll adjourn at 8:06, an hour.
Great.
Standing.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.